please welcome Senator the Honorable Kim Wilson, JP, Minister of Economy, Trade, and Industry, as she brings the introduction of Speaker, and immediately following her will be Mrs. Myrna Otterbridge, who will bring entertainment, and the next voice you'll hear after that will be that of the Right Honorable David Lammy, Member of Parliament for Tottenham.
Madam Premier, Cabinet Ministers, members of the Parliament, Senators, distinguished invited guests, good evening. It certainly is indeed an honor for me to welcome a gentleman who I consider to be like a brother to me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I was first asked to do the formal introduction of the Right Honorable David Lammy MP because we have some familiar ties. You see, we attended law school together and we have remained very good friends. And when I read through his bio, I was very impressed with the long list of accomplishments and accolades. I started thinking to myself, this is quite remarkable. On paper, he is a very accomplished individual. And then I started thinking about the David I knew, the David back in law school days. The David who slugged it out with me in law school in the United Kingdom, the late hours of doing research and writing papers, reading cases upon cases, and struggling through those exams, struggling through the likes of Professor Simon Coldham in constitutional law and our dear friend Andrew Harding. Remember those days? Back then, we vowed that we were going to change the world, armed with our law degrees and with our endless appetite for advocacy. We were going to right the wrongs and the injustices of the world. I also thought about the David who traveled all the way to Bermuda to experience my island home. He loved it so much that he made the visit twice. I also thought about the David who was my adventure buddy when we traveled to the west coast of the United States along Route 1 in a rented red Corvette, no, it was a red Mustang convertible, driving down Route 1, those were days, and we dared each other. You dared me to get a belly button piercing, and I dared you to do a tattoo. I know. In fact, actually, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Premier, before I stood up, David looked at the program. He said, "Oh, are you introducing me?" I said, "Yes, and I know where the bodies are buried." And he said, "But if you bring me down, you're going to go down too." Because either we were cohorts, co-conspirators, or I was his witness. But needless to say, we had some very crazy moments, David and I. And I remember one particular incident in law school, and we had Professor Andrew Harding, and he was quite a challenging professor, and he taught us constitutional law and English legal system, I think, but in particular constitutional law. And there was several hundred individuals that were taking this final exam, several hundred. And so we struggled studying over and over and over and just preparing for this test, and David was a little bit concerned that he may not have done as well as he expected. So the Professor Harding started to pass out all of the exams, and again, it was several hundred people in this class, and he told us that we only had 30 minutes to complete the exam. So every 5 minutes he would announce 25 minutes left, 20 minutes left, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, exactly. And I looked over at David, and I could see he was getting very, very flustered and anxious because, as I said, he was somewhat nervous about ensuring that he kept his first class honors by passing this class with a 1. Finally, after about 30 minutes, Professor Harding said, "All right, stop everyone, put down your pencils, turn in your exams, the time is over." So one by one, there was a group of 6 of us that used to study a lot together. Simon turned in his paper, then Fizz, then Rocky, then me, then Tina, then Dee. And David just sat there, kept working along, and we're all looking at each other saying, you know, why is he still working? He said, "Time is up, time is up." Needless to say, we all ushered out of the auditorium, and we kind of stood there at the door peeking in, seeing what is taking him so long. And then 15 minutes passed, 20 minutes passed, and then he calmly got up and turned in his exam. So we're all looking in horror because if you knew Professor Harding, he was not the nicest of individuals that you ever wanted to meet. And so Professor Harding said, "Well, what are you doing, David?" No, he said, "What are you doing?" He didn't call his name. He said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm turning in my exam." And the professor said, "Well, I'm sorry, but the exam was over 20 minutes ago, so you've turned it in late, so therefore you failed." So then David looked him right in the eye and he said, "Professor, do you know who I am?" Now remember, in law school there's big classes, so oftentimes you have a tutor that's teaching your class. So David looked at him and said, "Do you know who I am?" And the professor's like, "No." And David looked at him again as if David was somebody of prominence and importance, and said, "Do you not know who I am?" And the professor looked and said, "No, I don't know who you are, and frankly, I don't care." So then David took his exam, pushed it in between the hundreds of other exams, and said, "Good," and walked out. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Premier, as I said earlier, David is a tremendously accomplished gentleman. And I'd just like to provide you with a snapshot of who I am about to welcome to the podium. David Lammy currently serves as the Member of Parliament for Tottingham, and he has served in Her Majesty's government as the Minister of State for Higher Education and Intellectual Property, Department of Business, Innovation and Skills, and he is also a member of the United Kingdom's Privy Council, and he has served as a parliamentary undersecretary in numerous government departments. David is a graduate of Harvard Law School and the University of London. He is a current member of the Bar of England and Wales and a current member of Lincoln's Inn in London. His legal experience spans a wide variety of areas of law, including intellectual property, insurance, public finance, litigation, medical law, police law, as well as employment law. And his extensive writings and articles have appeared in such publications as The New Statesman, The Spectator, Prospect Magazine, The Times, The Guardian, The Independent, as well as The New Republic. He is widely respected amongst his peers, and we are thrilled that he has traveled from the United Kingdom to address us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the podium my good friend and UK parliamentarian, the Right Honourable David Lammy, MP.